Hi, and welcome to the OT is In, the podcast where we merge the worlds of education and occupational therapy to empower families like yours. I'm Sarah Collins, your host, an occupational therapist and a homeschooling parent. I've experienced occupational therapy by supporting families for over 15 years, but also through seeking out support of my own children, so I'm right here in the trenches with you. Though there is not one way to educate your child, there is a lot to consider when individualizing an education. And the goal of this podcast is to explain some of the why behind what an occupational therapist is thinking so you can apply it to your own family. Especially with my three favorite topics: executive functioning, handwriting, and sensory processing. Each episode will be packed with practical tips, expert interviews, and real-life stories aimed at helping you to create a supportive learning environment for your child. So, grab your headphones and get ready to dive in of the collision of education and occupational therapy. I'm Sarah Collins from Homeschool OT, and I'm thrilled to have you with me on this journey of discovery. Hey, and welcome back to another episode of the OT is In. Today, I get to sit down with Tiffany Parsons, who is another pediatric occupational therapist and homeschooling mom. She's a deep passion for supporting families outside traditional school settings. Sound familiar? This is why I'm so excited to bring her to you. Tiffany shares her unique journey from clinic-based therapy to homeschooling her twin boys and how that experience has inspired her to bridge that gap for homeschooling, microschooling, and private school communities seeking OT. In this conversation, Tiffany and I break down what occupational therapy really is, how parents can identify if their child might benefit from OT support, and why movement and developmental milestones like crawling and rolling are crucial to a child's learning and emotional well-being. But don't worry, if your child did miss those milestones, we talk about what you can do as well. We discuss practical ways that you can observe your child's movement to spot potential challenges, creative activities to support development. Hint, it is not just about handwriting worksheets. And we give friendly, hands-on advice for making therapeutic activities a natural part of everyday life at home. So whether you're a fellow OT, an educator, or a parent wondering how to better support your child's unique needs, this episode is for you. It's got insightful tips, meaningful stories, and a whole lot of encouragement. Thanks for being here. Let's dive in. Hey, how's the weather where you are? It's cool over here now that fall's coming in. Guys, this is a question that we get asked every day, but for kids, it can be so much more. Weather can spark conversations that build social skills, help kids notice their body's responses through interoception, and even deepen their sensory awareness as they explore sound, light, and movement in nature. That's what makes the National Weather Museum's Weather Kids Experience so special. This interactive platform invites kids to feel, see, and explore weather in a way that's accurate, creative, and fun. It's hands-on learning that opens the door to real connections. And weather doesn't stop at science. It ties into math through patterns and data, into literature and storytelling, art and photography, and even engineering as kids think about how humans interact with each of these elements. The Weather Kids Experience weaves all of this together in one immersive, engaging space. So the next time that you ask, "How's the weather?" remember, it's also a question that can spark wonder, learning, and connection. So visit wxkids.org to look around or purchase their annual membership and use the code HOMESCHOOLOT in all caps for 10% off and experience where weather becomes wonder. Now, on with the show. Hey, and welcome back to the OT is In. Today, I have Tiffany Parsons with me, who is actually another occupational therapist and homeschool mom, which, like, that combination, I love so much. Tiffany, can you share with us a bit of your journey and how you got to where you are right now?
Absolutely, I'd love to. I've been working in pediatric occupational therapy for the last probably 7 years. I was in an outpatient clinic the last 3 or 4, and I quit to homeschool my twin boys. So in that process, I realized that there was very limited therapy resources to homeschool families, to micro school families, and private Christian schools in the area. So I got this bright idea that I was going to go out and serve all of these people.
Sounds familiar.
Everything, but it didn't always go as planned. So I realized that I was trying to serve these families when they didn't even realize that they needed help.
Wow.
So I got to step back and reevaluate how I was approaching it and realize that I needed to just educate them on what occupational therapy is, how can it benefit them, their child, their family. So that's the route that I've taken here more recently, is just providing educational in-services to co-ops, parents, educators, and staff of private Christian schools and micro schools and things like that.
Oh, I love this. So tell me what your definition of occupational therapy is and how a family would know if they need OT. Because I think this differs based OT to OT. I'm really interested in this
Yeah,
answer.
absolutely. So an occupation is anything that occupies your time.
Yes.
Yeah, so people think it has to do with work, but a child's work, if you want to put it that way, is to develop through play. And then when they get school age, it's to complete academics and things like that. If there's any area, which is mind blowing because we literally can do anything that may affect their quality of life, their function, whether it be in play and academics and self-help skills, we can address it.
Yes. Oh,
So
so
broad, but
good. So good. And so when we started talking almost a year ago now, which is surprising to me, but I love it. One of the things that you mentioned that you really love is looking at how a child moves and what kind of information that gives you about their nervous systems, about their brains, and about their function, like how this ties into their day-to-day life. Talk to me a little bit more about that. Break that down. Like, why would their movement help you to know what their struggles are?
yeah, absolutely. So I am constantly evaluating children, even when I'm at the store, when we're at the playground, like in my mind is just constantly analyzing how they move. And so you can tell by how a child moves, whether they're compensating in any way, if there's any discrepancy from the left and right side, maybe a lack of awareness that they're being rough or bumping into things, maybe
Right.
they're walking on their toes, or the dreaded W sit
Yes,
talks
the
about.
dreaded.
Yes. So just by watching how a child plays and interacts, you can tell a lot about whether they're aware of where their body is in space, whether
Mhm.
they're sensitive to different sensory input and things like that. There's a
So,
lot to tell just by observing.
yeah. So if there's a parent who's, wait, what? Like, I'm supposed to watch how my child moves, and what does that actually mean? What would you say to that parent, and what is it that they should be looking for?
So I always refer way back to infancy.
Mhm.
And I'm really big on advocating about meeting all the developmental milestones and in order, because there is a reason that we naturally progress through those. But if we don't know that there's a reason, then we're
Yeah.
not going to foster those movements. We're just happy that little Johnny's walking at 9 months old, but maybe we skipped crawling or rolling, and they build on each other. So when we
Mhm.
skip one, they're going to be okay, but we
Yeah.
may see that there's challenges later on in life, whether it's academic challenges or emotional regulation challenges. So, usually, if I'm talking to a parent, though, there are challenges that aren't related to movement, say emotional regulation, limited diet, not being able to go to bed. There's usually an underlying issue, so they don't understand that it may have to do with how they're moving and developing. They just see those areas in their life that's difficult for them at that time.
So, how do you help to make a link between movement and those like kind of struggle areas?
For instance, if they're struggling with emotional regulation, sometimes I'll ask, do you remember if they rolled a lot as a baby? And 9 times out of 10, they're like, oh no, I don't think that they did. And then I'll link this connection about how rolling helps with that mouth spine rotation, helps with flexibility in our thinking. So if we didn't have a lot of rolling as an infant, when we get sensory input into our body, it goes up the spinal cord, and oftentimes it'll stop at the base of the brain where it's the reaction center.
Yeah.
And it's not getting to the frontal part of the brain where we can rationally think through things and problem solve. So those kiddos, sometimes I'll ask them, can you turn and look behind you, but your feet are still facing me? And they'll stop in that front plane. They don't have an awareness that there's a back side to them. So just simple log rolling or turning while we're standing can help with the process of getting information to the all the way through your brain so that
Right.
we can think, hey, maybe I'm making a bigger deal out of this than it is. And then that's when we can implement those self-regulation tools, calming techniques, and things like that. But it could be something as simple as that.
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about crawling because I've had a lot of parents coming recently who their kiddos skip straight from rolling, then sitting, and then walking. And
Right.
since the American Academy of Pediatrics took crawling out as a
Yeah.
milestone,
That makes me so
pediatricians,
sad.
yeah, same, but pediatricians don't are devaluing it. Talk a little bit more about why crawling and what can we do if our kids didn't crawl.
So if your child didn't crawl, it's not too late. And I
Yeah,
don't care if they're a teenager,
same.
we can still crawl. So crawling is a really great foundational skill. Not only are you getting deep pressure, proprioceptive pressure through the joints, all of them, because when we're putting it through our wrist, it goes to our joint or our elbow and our shoulder. But we're working on that bilateral integration, not only in your upper body, but your lower body. So really good for that. But in addition to that, it's really important for your ocular motor skills. So when babies are crawling, they're looking close to the ground at what's close to them, but then they shift their focus and they're looking around them. They're scanning their environment. So it's working on that depth perception.
I'm
Close
going to
up,
stop you right there
far
for one
away.
second because there's a lot of
Sure.
parents that might be like, what, the what? The ocular, huh? So what is the ocular motor system? What is that?
Yes, that's like the hand-eye
Love
coordination.
it. Yeah.
Another example would be, oh, my child's having a hard time looking at their paper and then looking up at their
Yeah.
board, at the board and like shifting that focus. So sometimes I can say, oh, did your child crawl much as a baby? And even if they did, but they only did it for a couple weeks or a month,
Yeah.
sometimes that's not enough to make those connections. They say that 4 months is a good amount of time to crawl. So if your child's pulling to stand, not crawling, I would say, let's lower them back down. Let's encourage them to crawl. And good ways to do that would be like through a tunnel, through something that's lower so that they're forced to, but it's fun and
Yeah.
playful. And do it with them.
I
They'll
love
crawl if
that
you're crawling.
modeling. I often joke because so my own son did crawl, but he crawled with what I call the janky leg. So he had
Yeah.
one leg behind him dragging the whole time.
Mhm.
And even later on, as he was probably 7 or 8, and we were really still seeing struggles with these ocular motor connections, right? So the eye-hand
Mhm.
coordination, the visual scanning, looking up
Mhm.
and down at the paper to be able to copy, like all of these things were a struggle. And we started two things. One, like using a scooter board where he was on his belly all the time and would pull himself forward. I would put like letters on one side of the floor and he would crawl, pull himself over, grab one and bring it back like for all of his spelling lessons. So that was one way we did it. The other was he would clean my floorboards. Like we always did a chore every day. And that was his. I had for a while, I used to joke like the cleanest floorboards in all of Pennsylvania. They are not now. They are not now. But for a while, because
It's a great
as
idea.
everyone, right, as everyone's doing chores, he just felt like he's doing it too. And it was really functional for him there. So it was a way of looking instead of our, is this chore just to help the family or is this chore for development too? And really
Yeah.
encouraged along that way.
I'm going to take note of that.
Check. You can have the cleanest floorboards in West Virginia. It'd be excellent. So, what are some other like activities or the function where parents may be seeing, okay, so here's where my child is struggling now. Is there something I should be observing or looking for in how they move to know whether I should seek out services or help?
Yeah, I notice a lot with like reading and writing. So we'll see a lot of that paper, like a whole body shift. So they'll
Hmm.
move their paper and they'll move their body, and you don't realize it, but they're trying to stay in one side of the
Plain.
plane.
Yeah.
They're not crossing midline. And physically they'll move, but then also their eyes don't want to cross midline, which will interfere with reading. So just watching their body language to try to compensate, because they will compensate. We will get through it.
Yeah.
Children adapt so easily. But if we can recognize that and think, oh, maybe they need a little bit of help, then they can seek the help and just make everything overall an easier task so it doesn't seem so burdensome or difficult. That's no fun.
No, it's no fun. And I actually love that you mentioned it that way, that kiddos are really going to adapt, but we want to help their brains and their bodies to be like the most efficient that they can be
Right.
without, there's so many parents that are like, what if my child feels like I'm trying to quote unquote fix him or fix
Right.
her? So talk to that parent about how do we help them, talk to their kids about, no, we're not trying to fix you, but what else can we say? How do we phrase that?
Yeah. So a lot of times when things are difficult, I always tell my children and my class that we can do hard things. But I think, again, just modeling and making it more of everyone's going to participate in this,
Yeah.
making it more play based. There's a lot of things, for instance, handwriting. We don't have to work on handwriting when we're actually working on handwriting.
Yeah.
And those activities will carry over. Yeah, I would just reiterate, we're trying to help you if they question. But there's so many adaptations that you can do, and a lot of times it's not super noticeable. So yeah.
Hey, it's Sarah, popping in for a quick minute to share a resource that I'm genuinely excited about. The FORM, or FORM curriculum from Form Education. If you're looking for a biblically based health and PE curriculum that supports your child's whole development, this is it. FORM gives you everything you need in one place. There's animated videos, devotional and teaching guides, movement videos, and auto-graded assessments, all designed to help your kids grow, not just physically, but in their faith and their self-awareness as well. It can be used within the home or as part of a co-op. Guys, I'm the gym teacher for our co-op this year for 3rd and 4th graders, and I can't wait to get started because I know I'll be providing really great lessons, and it's going to help to give them fitness, nourishment, information on rest, and it's all designed not just for right now, but what will plant seeds for a lifetime. And it supports the developmental principles that we talk about all the time here on the OT is In, like interoception, so understanding what's going on inside the body, motor planning, and grasping the why behind movement, not just the what. It's thoughtful, therapeutic, and it's rooted in truth. Getting started is easy, guys. Get instant access to preview the materials, review what's inside, and then you can purchase with confidence. We only get so much time with our kids, and Form helps make every moment count. So learn more at formeducation.org. Now, back to the episode. Welcome back. So Tiffany, right before we took this break, you mentioned you can work on handwriting, but you're not actually handwriting. Talk about
Yeah.
that a little bit more. What could that look like?
So when people hear that I'm a pediatric OT, they're like, oh, let me come to you about my child's handwriting. And it's funny because almost never do I work on handwriting in a treatment. And I think I might have heard you say this before, and I really loved it. But you need postural stability. You get
Distal
distal
mobility.
mobility. Yes.
Yes.
So there again, handwriting's the challenge, but there's usually underlying things that we have to address before we even get to handwriting. And by the time we address it, the handwriting usually starts working its way out on its
Yeah.
own without
Mhm.
sitting there doing pen and paper tasks. So I'm looking at their core strength and stability. I'm looking at their body awareness. If they don't know where their body is in space, how are we expecting them to sit still at a desk and be able to complete a handwriting task? But yeah, so ways we can do that is doing a lot of vertical surface activities. And it doesn't have to be handwriting. It can be painter's tape, taping toys to the wall, and we're going to take them down because that's really working your shoulders, working more proximal and then going distal. I'm a huge fan of Play-Doh. I think all kids love it. So that's always one of those good fine motor tasks, but
Right.
we want to work on that proximal stability and strength. You can get a lot of that from crawling and doing activities on the ground.
It's actually really interesting. So this year at our co-op here, I'm teaching a first and second grade handwriting class, and I'm actually having all those parents come over tonight, and we're going to go through because it's not going to look like your quote unquote average handwriting class. Now, there are huge benefits, and the research kind of doesn't, the research does back it up that we do need to explicitly be teaching letters. Like, how do we start our letters? We start them at the top. How do we work through what is the correct motor plan? But simultaneously, our kids have to be ready for that. So, what this course is not course, the class, the time with these kids, right? It's going to look
Yeah.
like form drawing. We're starting with that and then doing a lot of movement. And then we're going to go outside at the end to find the next form, which is a Waldorf based. And I will make sure to link in the show notes that episode that I have on form drawing. And then as the kiddos see it, they're going to come back in and narrate to an older kid about what they saw outside, where they saw it, where this form could be on a different spot. So they practice that storytelling and seeing their own words on paper, watching, knowing that they are authors already and why handwriting is important there, but without the added pressure of putting it all together at one time.
I love that.
Be
Being a
great.
drag.
I know. I think it's going to be great. So if anyone else wants to do that, make it happen at your
Yes,
co-op for sure.
that is so cool.
All right. So what are some other ideas to work? We talked about some vertical surface stuff, crawling, obviously, but
Mhm.
for the parent that's like, all right, I'm trying to think about all day long, every day, how am I going to get how many vertical surfaces or how many pieces of painter's
Right.
tape is my kid going to peel?
Yeah.
How does this more naturally fit into a day?
Of course, being an OT, we can involve them in any functional activity. So I think, oh, help me get the clothes out of the washer. They're heavy. You're reaching up to grab them, they're putting in the dryer. Now, if your child doesn't want to do that, there's multiple ways to implement it throughout their day, whether you're just placement of toys, being
Love
a little
it.
bit higher, things like that, where they don't even realize what they're doing. We can't avoid handwriting tasks. So
No.
another good thing to do is before we're going to do a handwriting task, we're going to maybe do a series of things to get our mind and our body ready. I like to do something like alerting, some sort of vestibular activity, jumping jacks or something like that. And then add some proprioceptive input to bring them back down, whether it be wall push-ups or chair
Love it.
push-ups where you push your body up off the chair. And then I do a lot of like sequential fingers or the Robinson hands grasp sequence.
Explain that. What is that?
That is a sequence of hand movements that helps mature the Robinson hand grasp reflex.
Okay.
So you'll start with like putting your fingers together, pinch, pinch, moving them in and out, two fingers in and out. We'll make a fist and open one finger at a time, close one finger at a time. Just go through this series of waking our fingers up. But a lot of kiddos, it's very difficult. That motor planning is not always there. Sometimes they
Yeah.
can only do one hand at a time, or you'll see a lot of that oral overflow with fine motor
Where your
movement.
mouth
So
is
their
doing that.
tongue is moving, their tongue's coming out. So you can actually see a lot just from that.
And for
But
those of you not watching but listening only, I'll make sure that there's a link to a video on the sequence.
yes, that would be awesome. So just implementing that, I always say, let's warm up our fingers and something along those lines. Using our finger to do either infinities in the air and having them watch it so that we're also warming our eyes up. Or you can even trace whatever letter you're working on or spelling words, something along those lines, but encouraging big movements so that we are going to cross midline. We are starting on our left and working our way to our right, things like that. So just some good warm up activities. Make it a part of your routine
Yeah.
and just waking our mind and our eyes and our body up before we do tasks like that.
I love the way that you're saying your mind, your body, eyes, like all of it, because it really is. We're not just only a body or only a brain, but like how
Right.
the whole body brain connection, how it all works together. We need
Yeah.
to help our kids to realize that and also model it and show. I love that. So, what are some of your favorite resources for parents at home if they're homeschooling or if this is like an after school activity? What are some of those resources where you can send them to find some more information?
I send them to you.
Yes, amazing.
I always say, hey, I have a friend who does parent coaching. Drop a link. Recently, I have come across a company called Harkla,
Yes.
and I was really interested when I first saw them because they really talk about primitive reflexes.
Mhm,
So I actually have taken a few of their courses, and they are very easy to
mhm.
implement into your day. They have so many different exercises that you can use, and it's for parents as well as therapists. So when you're done with the course, you, even as a parent who doesn't have an occupational therapy education,
Right.
confident to implement it at home. That's the resource that I've recently found, but you can really find free resources anywhere. There's pages that I follow on Facebook. I have a Facebook page where I will share anything that I feel could be helpful in the homeschool and private school world. So
Amazing.
whether it's a YouTube video or a link to some Amazon supplies and equipment that others have
Yeah.
found useful. So I just want to be a source that I can just point people in the right direction because I understand that I can't be everywhere and I can't treat
Yeah.
everyone despite
Right.
my I
Desire to do that. But I
yes.
love the way because parents, it can be so overwhelming. And I've been in those shoes and I am an occupational therapist. And I still remember when I was really beginning to search out for my own son resources, how overwhelming it was because there's such a plethora. And I feel like I could weed through a lot easier with my OT background. The
Yes.
fact that you are ciphering through for families, I think that's such an amazing help. And how can people find you?
Yeah, so I'm on Facebook and the homeschool OT, Tiffany Parsons, not to get confused with the homeschool Sarah Collins, which is so funny because I had no idea. And then I recently published my website, which is called agapeloveot.com. And that is
Amazing.
my LLC. Agape love being that unconditional love.
Mhm.
And we only know how to give that because of the one who loved us first, Jesus. So
Beautiful,
that's
right?
where I got the title there. It's very minimal things are on there yet, but I'm working on making some pre-recorded educational in-service videos for purchase for parents and educators, teachers, things like that, so that they can just get a brief but deeper understanding of that connection of reflexes and
Yeah,
academic work. And then after that, just to give resources of where they can go to get more information and more help.
fantastic. Tiffany, thank you so much for being here and sharing this wealth of knowledge on some things that parents can look for specifically in movement, and then also some things that we can do about it. Just
Yeah.
such a help. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Sarah.
Thanks for tuning into the OT is In. If today's episode got you thinking about some of the underlying skills in handwriting, whether it's how your child holds a pencil, how they sit at the table, or how they move through their day, I've got a resource just for you. You can now download the Motor and Handwriting Assessment at homeschoolot.com. It's a quick and easy tool to help you figure out where your child is thriving and where they might need a little support. So just head to homeschoolot.com/shop to grab your copy or find a link in the show notes. And as always, thanks for letting me be a part of your homeschool journey. Remember, the OT is always in, and I am so glad that you are here.